everyone, and welcome back to Sunday Reads with Renee. My name is Renee here at Simply Renee, and I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented, subscribed, and clicked the notification bell to my channel and videos. I truly appreciate it. Today I'm going to be doing a double book review of Madame C.J. Walker, The Making of American Icon, and The Three Mothers. Both are nonfiction works here for February. And before I begin, I want to let everyone know I'm going to be using alternative words and phrases because of YouTube rules and regulations, and I'll be also revealing plot points, therefore spoilers are ahead. The first review is Madame C.J. Walker, The Making of an American Icon by Erica Ball. And this was published in 2021 as part of the Library of the African American Biography series. And it's more of a short, detailed work of a basic biography setup. It's only about under 200 pages, but I thought it was very well detailed, and it does give the basic biographical setup on Madame C.J. Walker's life. For those unfamiliar with Walker's life, she is known as America's first self-made millionaire, though some experts do not believe that to be entirely true, only because Walker's finances are more detailed and well documented compared to others such as Mary Ellen Pleasant. Nonetheless, this is a nice biography that gets into a short but sweet, detailed look at Madame C.J. Walker's life, how she evolves from being a rags to riches individual to becoming a huge success with her hair care and cosmetics business. The biography itself is a basic setup that you see with a lot of biographies, whether they're 300 plus pages long or in this case, just under 200 pages. And it starts off with just Madame C.J. Walker's beginning as a woman named Sarah, born to formerly enslaved parents, being orphaned at a young age, and working as a domestic staff member, and just how she grows and evolves and becomes a huge success in later life. The struggles, successes, and failures of starting her own hair care business and cosmetics as well, and just all those struggles, failures, and successes, how she succeeds, the challenges she faces, especially as a Black woman in the late 19th century, turn of the 20th century, but how she ends up becoming a huge success. And this company was hugely successful up until it closed in the 80s, and it is a big part of the legacy, especially since she's someone that really does continue to inspire female entrepreneurs and has her own place in history. But what I did like about this biography is that it does go into more details about Madame C.J. Walker's involvement in activism and how she really was philanthropic, especially in the early 20th century. And that was the most interesting part for me because I find the early 20th century to be really, in my opinion anyway, the cusp of how they kept pursuing the civil rights for African Americans, especially with so many organizations of African Americans really striving to fight racial injustice, become educated, and really just trying to fight for their values against a segregated South, especially a segregated United States, where there was a lot of horrific racial injustice. And I found that to be the most interesting part because here is Madame C.J. Walker, who is a self-made millionaire in her own right. She worked extremely hard with others to really build that company, and she gave back to the Black community as well as helping them to succeed, especially Black women. She was very philanthropic, donating to causes, organizations, chapters, and fighting for injustices, as well as fighting for equality among all races. And I think that was a good part of the biography that I really enjoyed the most because it was very interesting to see all that involvement in the donations she gave to give back to the community as this self-made millionaire and trying to help others succeed as well as fight injustice. All in all, I do think this was a good biography of Madame C.J. Walker. I do agree that there are some other biographies that are a little bit longer than length, 300 plus pages. But if you're someone that isn't into biographies but wants to read a biography and have it be shortened, I would recommend this one. It really does delve into not only Walker's history, but also just how she became this huge American icon that still is important today and how her legacy has kept intact and how she continues to inspire not just female entrepreneurs, but also causes, organizations, and helping people succeed as much as possible. And it really is a good biography, so I do recommend it. The second book review is The Three Mothers by Anna Malaika Tubbs, and this was published in 2021 and something that I recommended earlier this month as part of Black History Month for the books to read. And I really wanted to do a more detailed review on this book because I really liked it when I read it in 2021, and I think it is very good for what Tubbs was trying to discuss, which was more on Black motherhood and how Black women have not been featured enough in Black History Month and their contributions to civil rights, Black history, as well as influencing the next generation and multiple generations as well. And this book in particular focuses on three women: Alberta King, mother of Martin Luther King Jr., Louise Little, mother of Malcolm X, and Beatrice Baldwin, mother of James Baldwin, and how these three women went through their own struggles and fought against horrific racism as well as racial injustice and fought for civil rights, and how their teachings and influence really helped to shape their sons to become these huge figures in the 20th century with civil rights, literature, writings, fighting for justice, advocating, and how their legacies still continue today. And even though this book is very much a biographical setup, it really is a detailed work on how these women are very much on the same page of what they want and their influence of their sons, but also how different they are. For Louise Little, mother of Malcolm X, she was born in Grenada, which is a country in the West Indies, and she ended up moving to Montreal and immigrating there, and that's where a lot of her social justice advocacy started. She worked for a newspaper, and she eventually toured the United States with her husband to really promote advocacy for racial injustice and to stop all that completely and fighting for racial equality and fighting for those causes. But she was also influenced a lot by Black nationalism as well as self determination. So she had a little bit of a different outlook on things, but she really was at the cusp of fighting for that and ingrained in that, especially in the early 20th century. And she and her husband fought against horrific forms of racism as well as racial segregation, violence, and horrific atrocities that occurred. And a lot of those teachings went into her son, Malcolm X. And it came at a tragic cost because she also had problems where she ended up going into a psychiatric facility. But she nonetheless really influenced her son, Malcolm X, to really take on those challenges and fight for civil rights. But for Louise Little, she really was at the cusp of this, really ingrained in that, and saw the horrors for itself. Beatrice Baldwin, on the other hand, is someone that did fight for civil rights and was very interested in that, but she also had a different upbringing where she was primarily raised by a single father, her mother having passed away when she was a young baby. And also, Beatrice was someone who moved to Harlem from Maryland and was ingrained in a lot of the Harlem Renaissance, so she experienced that firsthand. And she encouraged her son James to really focus on education and literature, saw his passion for writing, and really encouraged him to pursue his writing career and encouraged him to really have a good education as well. And you can find a lot of writings of James Baldwin which do have a lot of civil rights ingrained in those writings. So that was Beatrice's influence in that regard. And when it came to Alberta King, mother of Martin Luther King Jr., she was very much right from social activism from the beginning, more ingrained in a faith-based way. She was born in Atlanta, had parents who were very ingrained in religion. She herself became very religious and fought on a peaceful basis, but also faith based as well, and encouraged that with her children along with her husband. And she really did focus on that, fighting for the injustice. They never did the Great Migration, they remained right in Atlanta, right at the heart of the American South, where there was horrific Jim Crow and segregation. So they were in the thick of all the racial injustices and violence head on, and how they really fought for that. So all these three women are very different in many ways, but they were nonetheless involved in the teachings and ingrained in shaping their sons to become these huge influential leaders. And the tragedy that I find, especially when you read these books or look at their individual history, is that all three mothers outlived their sons in some way, shape, or form. Two of them violently passed as a result of horrific violence. And what was tragic for me when it came to Alberta King is that when you read her history, she ended up passing away as a result of the same way with her son, which was a violent elimination. And I thought that was very tragic. And it kind of hit me hard like, wow, she ended up only being a few years apart from her son, and they both ended up being violently eliminated in the same way. So that was something that I found very interesting, but also very tragic and heartbreaking because it's just you have these two people that were very ingrained in social activism on a faith-based way and peaceful way, and they ended up leaving this world in a very violent way as a result of horrific violence and segregation and everything else that was happening in the 60s and 70s, especially. Probably the one that I thought was more interesting to me was Louise Little, especially when I was writing for this review. And that was because Louise Little is someone who really was a strong-held woman right from the beginning of her life, and she really fought for equality. She was in the thick of it, touring the United States, focusing on it, even amidst everything that was happening in the US with horrific racial injustice and violence. So this was a really good book to really focus on Louise Little, as well as the other two women that we don't know much about, who were very influential to these sons who still have their legacies intact. So I do feel that Tubbs really does focus on what this book is really about, which is focusing on Black motherhood, but the stories of Black women and how they were influential to not just their sons, but the next generation and generations before. Because one of the things Tubbs writes is that she wanted to focus on how women's stories have been erased, especially Black women's stories, and that while they were a part of the civil rights movement, they aren't discussed enough. And I do agree with that because when I think of civil rights movement, I think more of Rosa Parks and Ida B. Wells. I don't really think too much of other women who were ingrained in this and quite influential. So I came away with something when I read The Three Mothers. So this is something that I think was very good, especially with the book itself, to really come away with understanding more about how these women were ingrained. And while their stories aren't very well known, you come away with something about them. And it makes me want to learn more about them as well and see what they were like, how they were influenced. And that's what you really get from this book. So I think Tubbs did a great job in doing that. As such, I also highly recommend this one because as heartbreaking and tragic as this is, it's really something that I think everyone should read because it gets you an understanding of what these women were like, how they influenced their sons, because they really shaped them to become the people that they were and the legacies they still carry even long after they've passed. I thank you so much for tuning in. Now tell me what you think. Do you agree with me? Not agree with me? Have you read these books? Have you not read them? What did you think about the arguments? What are your opinions? Please let me know in the comments section below. I welcome all discussions as always. I thank you again so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell. I'll be back on Wednesday with another video, Friday with a food video, and next Sunday with another Sunday Reads video. I thank you so much for tuning in once more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.